He does a belly flop onto them? Oh my god. That's so horrifically beautiful. I remember seeing this guy from one of the trailers. I think he's like a master assassin for the Skaven.
Welcome to a noob's guide to DEATHMASTER SNIKCH. This is Snitch, chief assassin of Clan Eshin, and you won't see him again in this video, unless he wants you to. Available as a lord in the Shadow and the Blade DLC for Total War Warhammer 2, Snitch is the furry blade in the darkness, the whiskers that tickle your neck at night, and the rat-a-tat tapping on your rooftop tiles. And everything about him is awesome. He's Zoro from One Piece. If he adopted 4 turtles, he'd have a hit Saturday morning cartoon show, and he'd never even fight on it, because this Master Splinter is shredded. I mean, look at those abs. Cool. You could do laundry on that washboard. He's probably never even seen a carb. The guy is a walking Chuck Norris joke, killing targets with roundhouse kicks and 3 daggers to the heart. The last thing any of Snitch's targets sees when he comes for them is nothing, because pros just slit your throat from behind and disappear back into the shadows. Only amateurs shank you in the kidney to bleed out in the bathroom, which, by the way, is rarely
even disappears in battle
without magic. And Clan Eshin, DEATHMASTER SNIKCH's personal eagle's nest of assassins, are nothing if not professional, and not in the creeping on a 12-year-old Natalie Portman way either. Clan Eshin are the fabled 12th clan of the Skaven, dropping everything to travel.
Wait, fabled 12th clan? Is it like, you know, people know of its existence but it's not mentioned type deal?
East to the lands of Nippon to learn its ancient martial secrets. And Nippon, which is totally not Japan.
Totally not Japan.
If you sent rats there and they came back as ninjas, it would be super racist. And Games Workshop doesn't do that sort of thing. Well, I mean, not anymore.
Oh no, dude. Well, I guess at some point it always happens to every company, and they just mess up a little bit, and yeah. I've heard, well, I'm pretty sure I've seen some comments talking about Nippon as like an actual place in Warhammer Fantasy, but I don't think there's any specific faction from that place in Warhammer Fantasy, or at least, well, not Warhammer Fantasy, but in Total War. We have the Cathay, but they're not exactly from Japan.
Anyway, these super rat ninja assassin hitmen returned home with deeper insights into the art of death and immediately established themselves as murderers for hire. Clan Eshin works as professional contracted killers to the Lords of Decay, the metaphorical and quite literal poison dagger in the hands of the Council of 13, where they found that murder for hire is a good business, and cousin, business is a boomin'. Their current leader is the on-the-nose named Night Lord Sneak, which is almost as bad as naming an evil dark elf swordsman Malice Darkblade, but that's another video. Sneak dresses in kimonos and sports extra-long nails that he uses to stroke his Fu Manchu mustache, as he whispers from the shadows between puffs on his hookah while he plays Old Man of the Mountain. Because if there's one thing the English know how to culturally appropriate, it's yellowface. Just ask Sean.
Oh god, no. Oh my god. Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Connery or Alec Guinness. Well, I mean, you can't because Obi-Wan has become one with the Force, but Sean Connery is an immortal Spaniard. I saw that in the documentary Highlander. It's about an American raised in Paris who thinks he's from Scotland and gargles acid professionally. But while Night Lord Sneak clicks his coke nails together to orchestrate Clan Eshin, DEATHMASTER SNIKCH plays its symphony of death, an expert in using the drums of war, the trumpets of poison, and the oboe of gas, I guess, because it's a wind instrument. There's a fart joke in here somewhere. Just give me a minute, I'll find it. DEATHMASTER SNIKCH is the product of 100 years of rat foo. His infamy only exceeded by the mystery which surrounds his whereabouts.
Oh, okay. For whatever reason, I just finally got his joke about him being Zoro. It's because he has his third blade and he uses his tail to wield it. Gotcha. I don't know why I didn't pick up on that instantly, but brain slow.
At any given time. He slips out silently, strikes with only a squeak, and dispenses toxic death with only a brief glimpse of brown fur, leaving behind a lingering odor of fear and Taco Bell. See, I knew there was a fart joke in there somewhere.
Taco Bell?
Snitch is really the only Skaven in the entire world of Warhammer that really gets shit done. And when he's taking out a hit on the Council's orders, he likes to make it clear who is responsible by leaving his mark like some sort of mass-murdering Zorro. When he decapitated Scoot of Merkpit, he left his skull stacked on top of the heads of 100 Sturm Vermin bodyguards. When Clan Festerlingus started crossbreeding giant rats with alligators, it was awesome, but then they realized they needed to be knocked back down a mark, so it was Snitch's mark they found slashed into their mutated creations' corpses. Of course, Snitch is sent out after other races as well. One of his most famous kills is the celestial wizard Heinrich Friesen, whose flayed corpse was found hanging from the ceiling of his still locked chamber. In another mission, Snitch
I guess that's a fantasy lore thing.
Killed Dromgar Ironhammer, the brother of the would-be king of Carrick 8 Peaks, Belagar Ironhammer, and only left his decapitated body behind, making sure to bring back his head like a predator trophy, so that now everyone in the world of Warhammer runs up their basement stairs squeeing after they turn out the lights, which I totally don't do every time I go down there. And on the battlefield, furry Batman here swoops in like a living shadow, triple-wielding his unique weeping blades, which are infused with toxins and warpstone, so they're uniquely designed to somehow make you even deader. And to ensure he reaches you unseen, he wears one of the 3 Deathly Hallows, a demented cloak of shadows, woven from stolen human hair and spider silk. So then in the
stolen human hair and spider silk? Ugh. God. Well, of course, there's magic weaved into it to make sure that you can't be recognized or maybe even seen. I mean, I'm glad that it has a functional use, though. If it was just, you know, for decor, then it would be kind of,
end times, he's even able to sneak up and shank Thorgrim Grudgebearer and draw his personal symbol on the last page of the Book of Grudges.
Yo, dude, that's so disrespectful.
As a final Skaven middle finger before disappearing again into the shadows. And when you're playing as Clan Eshin, you'll likely never know where Snitch is either, as CA seems to have taken a cue from Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and cast Snitch as a Ratio Auditore, controlling a syndicate of assassins through a menu system called Shadowy Dealings that finds him always scurrying away to the ass end of the world. Clan Eshin missions send Snitch and your other heroes on odd local tasks, while clan contracts remove your agent from the map and put them on cooldown. The clan contracts actually go a long way to make you feel like one clan in the larger Skaven Empire. With only Clan Eshin ninja units normally available to you, you'll need to recruit from other clans to fill out armies, and those units start at double their normal cost. It's only completing clan contracts that changes that, and since you can really only keep 2 clans happy at a time in this system, the rest can frankly bugger off, as between Moors and Skyr, you have an A-tier front line and more range than your first tug after No Nut November. Late game, you could switch over to Molder for abominations and Pestilence for plague stuff, but you could just as easily eat lead paint. Everyone agrees it's a bad idea, but clearly no amount of warning labels are going to stop you. Eshin missions are a bit more complicated and require you to have schemes available to you, created to leash Snitch's OP abilities. The truly epic ones, like Plunge into Anarchy, cost 5 schemes and allow you to instantly kill a faction leader and spawn a rebel army, but CA gave it a 100-turn cooldown because the former Imperialists know firsthand what happens if you give colonies an option to revolt.
Round up the aristocrats!
The downside.
Jesus. Okay. But 100-turn cooldown, though. How long would an actual game last? Maybe you could use it a few times. But I understand why you'd want to limit something like that. These mechanics are pretty interesting, though. They are, once again, extremely unique. What I'm wondering, though, is if, like, you send Snitch off on one of these assassin-type missions, then I guess you just have somebody else leading your army in the meantime? Or does he magically appear back in order to do that? Or is he not, like, actually sent off and it's just a mechanic thing?
Side is that completing a 5-scheme mission and a 1-scheme mission both just award a single level. You can also instantly use as many of them as you want to until you run out of schemes, and even that's okay because you can just use stash rations to reset all your schemes, but it's also on a 20-turn cooldown. If you haven't noticed yet, this system has more cooldowns than the Ice Age. Additionally, schemes are unlocked by special Night Lord Say-So missions, which pop up at level-gated intervals of 5, 15, and 30. They also form the main objectives for your Vortex campaign, eventually leading to a showdown with the DLC's other lord for control of the Demon's Arcane. These night...
Yeah, makes sense, I suppose, from what we saw from the cinematic trailer, too. that they were fighting each other.
Lord Say-So quests spawn an enemy army next to your capital, so be prepared to deal with them before you send Snitch out, as he'll be on cooldown and won't be able to participate. And if you're on hard or higher, this is the equivalent of dropping your soap in the prison shower, so just try not to clinch and think of the Queen of England. Or you can always use the new revitalizing scheme, right, and immediately respawn any wounded characters to his faction. For faster leveling, you could always offer cheese to the cheese god and try rebellion farming, and it will likely work for Snitch's Mortal Empires campaign start as you begin in a newly added eastern extension that includes the Dragon Isles. But his Vortex campaign starts smack in the middle of the Southlands, surrounded by stone lions, dwarf bears, and tiger-striped dinosaurs. Oh my. So while Snitch is away on assignment, he'll need to lean heavily on his new Master Assassin lords. And these were paw trained by Snitch himself, using the latest in Skaven technology.
In this movie picture, there are 400 Skaven shadow sneaks. None
this is great.
Can be look-seen. In this video film, we tell show how not to be look-seen. This Morphin Clan Modos, Hellpit Lair Home, Third Burrow Nest, on right. He no be look-seen. Now, I ask Tell to stand squeak. Morphinrod, stand squeak. This show tells why be shadow sneak is best. In this movie picture, we know look-see Klesh from Skavenblight. Klesh, stand squeak now. This Whiskey's from Under Altdorf. Whiskey's, stand squeak. Whiskey's no learn first lesson of being shadow sneak, not to stand squeak. It's tricky Ratman. We know no guess what bushy behind, but we find see easy. Yes. It was center middle one. Death Squeak Clan's Pestilence choose pick best good way to not be look seen. When we go get, he no in burrow nest. He leave go for 2 weeks holiday. Now his neighbor, Good Skaven, he squeak tell on him. Told us where he leave go.
Squeak tell on him?
And this neighbor who told Squeak. And this whole clan family.
And now for something completely different.
After this rigorous culling process, the few Master Assassins left are understandably wary of meeting anyone new, and also incredibly excited to stab their own kind. These Master Assassins follow in Snitch's example and excel at hero killing in close combat using Vanguard deployment, stalk, and concealment bombs. And as commanders, they have additional buffs to ambush, and since Skaven's basic movement always has a chance to ambush, these guys start every fight by kicking you in the nads before they sucker punch you. Doubling down on what makes them great, this DLC also adds a new Skaven wizard, Eshin Sorcerers with the Lore of Shadows. Their first spells are all about getting would-be assassins to their targets by buffing speed and defense, but their fourth spell, and by far the most innocuous, is Veil of Shadows. It's a swirling vortex that doesn't actually hurt anyone, but just knocks them out of the way. But it also doesn't affect your own troops, so you can use it to part the Red Sea and spread the enemy's keister so Snitch can insert his three-bladed shocker.
I mean, yeah, that's a really useful spell, especially for, well, our current game plan. Separate your enemy and assassinate them. I hadn't seen too many uses of, I guess, crowd control spells in all the videos that we had watched, so it's nice to see that there does appear to be some that can affect how units are positioned.
It's also very handy at unblobbing gates. And the first thing you'll want to send through them is the new Eshin Triad unit. In the lore, they're a trio of apprentice assassins. In the game, they're a cheap anti-large halberd unit you have access to from turn 1, which, considering you're surrounded by Tomb Kings, it's just what the Plague Doctor ordered. The Triad's unique Regiment of Renown version can even create duplicates of themselves, called doppelgangers, to throw off enemies for a type of shadow clone jutsu, which also highlights that not a single rat ninja in this game Naruto runs. Not a single goddamn one of them. I mean, I reported this as a bug to CA since they gave it to me as a press release, and they called me a weeb and told me to move out of my mom's basement if I ever wanted one of these again. So I cried into my anime body pillow and made this video. It's
same. Relatable. Not gonna lie, as the founder of the legit Weebs, you know, Deathmaster Snitch seems very appealing. I wonder why. A very interesting gameplay style, especially combined with his mechanics and like recruiting units from the other factions. And of course there's that downside of it being kind of expensive, but you also have your schemes, and when you manage those properly, I'm sure that it kind of just works out. Although I am curious how we'd fare 1v1 versus some of these like lords and heroes that we've seen. Because I did watch the Gorok video that Kleeper did, and I don't think you can assassinate Gorok. I think Gorok takes the knife to the back, and shrugs it off, and then clubs you in the head. I can't imagine how effective he'd be in 1v1 combat if, like, everybody has that much regeneration. Yeah, I guess I'll just have to see it for myself.
Ironic that the rest of the Skaven units added with this DLC have very little to do with assassins. Poison Wind Mortars are cool and give the Skaven a unit with indirect fire, and Warp Grinders or teams are just hilarious as they literally drill you into submission. But neither really fit with the whole sneaky ninja Clan Eshin motif. Night Runners, Gutter Runners, and Death Runners were already in the game, and now that they're properly buffed, you have an ambushing army with Vanguard deployment, stealth, stalk, snipe, boost to missile damage, and a partridge in a pear tree that they stole from the Wood Elves. Snitch's campaign lets you play as a badass assassin who runs around the map, murdering anyone in his way, and potentially one-shotting any character on the map if you give him the Sword of Cain. But he's a glass cannon, and like the rest of his army, you'll need to babysit them to get the most out of their rat ninja power.
Well, I mean, I guess pretty much any other character with the Sword of Cain could likely do that. Some more than others. So while he would deal a ton of damage, if he gets spotted, then he's probably just gonna die.
So this holiday, instead of a fat man coming down your chimney, try a rat man ninja assassin with ridiculous abs.
And now for Crazy Pirate Man.
Welcome to a Noob's Guide to Luthor Harkon. This is Luthor Harkon, self-titled Grand Commodore of the Dreadfleet, and without a doubt, the worst pirate you have ever heard of, whose fractured psyche drives him to madcap adventures across the ocean, fueled by a never-ending need to overconsume red liquids. He sails a mystical ship as an undead menace with no regard to the safety of his undead crew, and his sole goal is to gather together cursed pieces of 8 for his own personal gain, and in the end he fights a giant kraken thing. So if you're a lawyer for the Walt Disney Corporation, you're welcome for that opening statement.
Yeah, that's very true. And I mean, I'm sure there was inspiration taken from it, for sure. From what I remember from what you guys have told me, this guy got to like a lizard man relic, and then it ended up backfiring on him, thus rendering his personality to be split into several different ones, so he just kind of walks around the battlefield just twitching and just switching personalities, and he's kind of super unpredictable with what he does. But what I will say is that, like, a lot of their units look really, really cool. Like the giant crabs, and then the Necrofix Colossi or something like that. I forget their exact names. But they're the giant walking ships. Yeah, that's so cool. I just wish that in, well, that was in 2, right? They probably fixed the music in 3. Because, yeah, the music in 2 didn't have the sea shanties, and that's needed, I would say. Totally necessary if you're gonna play the pirate faction, go to war.
Honestly, Vampire Pirates sounds like the dumbest idea since Ape Astronauts, but somehow both worked.
It works.
And you all love our discount Jack
awesome.
Sparrow, Luthor Harkon. Probably because he plays like something from Vampire Pimp My Ride. Zombies? Boring. Strap a brother up. Flying zombies? Put guns on that shit. Giant hermit crabs? I feel you, fam, but more guns. Reanimated hulls of ships, twisted into life with dark necromancy and forever bound together in a never-ending scream of pain? They don't need guns. They need cannon arms. And also spinning rims and a PlayStation 2 in the trunk. We gots to make Exhibit proud. Harkon is one of the 4 lords that came with the Curse of the Vampire Coast DLC for Total War Warhammer 2, which added even more vampire and undead units to a game already overstuffed with them. But 2018 was the year of pirates, and everybody wanted to board the Black Flag boat. I mean, well, ship, really. I mean, it has to do with carrying capacity, and the ship's the bigger one. Though at this point, Creative Assembly's poor wallet probably needs a whole armada to carry it, it's so heavy. Luthor Harkon himself has a backstory that is wildly underdeveloped, because he comes from a spin-off article from White Dwarf magazine. Sometimes it's not dorky and elitist enough just to play Warhammer. You need to flex your hipster and play a character even you haven't heard of. See,
oh no, that's unfortunate. We have this kind of problem with 40k too, so I guess it's no surprise that it also happens in fantasy.
Harkon was born in Lamia, the totally awesome progenitors of everything vampire that are unlikely to ever make it into a Total War game, as the fanbase will riot if we get a 30-second vampire lord. But I mean, the Lamians are still bitchin' regardless. Luthor Harkon was just another NPC guard until he was offered the Blood Kiss by an immortal vampire swordsman who now wanders the world because he only drinks the blood of worthy foes he's defeated in battle.
Ooh.
But instead of joining the Blood Knights and Blood Dragons, which both sound like a 13-year-old trying to be edgy, Luthor Harkon literally disappears off the map for 1,000 years, reappearing again in the annals of the Empire of Man when a Norscan raiding party attacks an Imperial merchant ship and loots everything of value from within its hold. Unfortunately for them, this also included the sarcophagus of Luthor Harkon, and like Dio in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, his desiccated corpse comes back to life and zombifying everyone on board. And without a healthy dose of hormone to stop him, the boat floated aimlessly on the waves until finally running aground on the coast of Lustria.
I'm so glad that Cody is a JoJo's fan, or at the very least knows the memes.
Spilling out a now undead fleet of Norscan pirates, led by everyone's favorite pirate, Luthor Harkon, who, to point this out, has no previously mentioned experience as a pirate before this point, which explains how they probably ran aground in the first place, and might also go to explain why when you play as Harkon, you'll be stuck on the vampire coast for the first half of your game, not so much sailing the high seas, as sailing back and forth along the same stretch of coast again and again, fighting the same island battle over and over again. God, I got sick of this place.
Oh no.
But though he's stranded on the ass end of the world, Harkon has doubled down on his sea salty lifestyle and has decided to take up nautical cosplay, proclaiming himself as the new Arch Commodore of the Dreadfleet. And as the winds and currents along that stretch of shore proved to be incredibly treacherous, Luthor's army became swollen with the lifeless corpses of whoever happened to wash up on his vampire coast, and so Harkon stumbled onto an army by sheer luck. If this sounds—
Oh, that's right. There's that place in the sea, right, where all the dead people, dead bodies or whatever, it just, for whatever reason, gathers there. So, yeah, that's just a breeding place for an undead army. It just works out somehow.
It's like the first stage in a plan of world domination. You're not wrong. But unfortunately, Luthor Harkon got sidetracked somewhere between underpants and profit. Wanting to artificially bolster his already significant magical abilities, he went searching for some Lizardmen performance-enhancing glyphs.
Yeah,
I guess
here
he was
it is.
desperate to
We
be
saw this in
proclaimed
the
the
trailer.
next Mr. Universe vampire or something, because Luthor Harkon broke into a hidden Slan temple to get his pump on, only to find that, in fact, drugs are actually bad for you kids, and you shouldn't take shortcuts, because instead of bacne and uncontrollable mood swings, he found himself cut off from the winds of magic, and also has uncontrollable mood swings, thanks to a newfound multiple personality disorder.
Cut off from the winds of magic.
Sure, it makes
Okay.
him a pretty good dueling lord. I mean, you just send him at the enemy in a frenzy and hope his personality
Guess
doesn't
that
switch
just
to
means
a
he can't
pacifist
use
before
magic.
he gets there. And as a weird side effect of being drained of all magic, Harkon now finds that magic is about as effective against him as a 6-year-old condom. So both he and his armies get a 25% resistance to any wizarding nonsense they encounter. Though some part of him does still suffer from a bit of wand envy. While another part of his personality points out that with a ranged attack, melee frenzy, and vampiric regeneration, he's basically unkillable in multiplayer so long as his personalities don't turn on each other. But there are two things that all his personalities can agree on. One is that his Deathstreak Terrorgeist mount is awesome, and the other is that they all really hate Lizardmen and want to murder any scaly bastards they come across.
Oh my god. Oh no, not my favorite faction. Why, Luthor, why? I can see why, but like, it always feels bad. But I guess in a fictional universe filled with war, there's gonna be people who just don't like each other. They're not gonna like your favorites, and well, you can play for whichever side you want. But it does feel bad. It's kind of like when you show something that you really love to somebody that you think will enjoy, and then they're like, It was kind of meh. That really sucks.
Don't expect to make friends with any Lustrian natives. The upside of your huge penalty to lizardmen relations is that you get a +8 leadership bonus against them, because nothing inspires troops faster than an endless supply of skink skin boots. But with his mind now the plot of the M. Night Shyamalan movie Split, Harkon is looking to superglue back together his fractured mind and reunite with his sweet sparkle finger guns. And that's actually his main quest line when you play him in Warhammer 2. Collect cursed land artifacts so you can make the drugged out undead rock star stop stroking the fuzzy walls. And as an added benefit, when he's restored, you'll get access to the unique Lore of the Deep, which grants unique, deep insights into the arcane. Like, it's funny that pirates are always sailing around looking for treasure and never realized that the real treasure was the memories they were creating together on the journey. Luckily, your actual main objective in Warhammer 2, as with all Vampire Coast pirates, is to collect ancient sea shanties to summon the Not a Kraken and then spear him in the head with a meteorite harpoon, because in fantasy tropes, meteorites are magically powered superweapons instead of the handy supply of iron in the Bronze Age. Harkon's plan here is to raise his infamy by doing piratey things, so he can track down and kill the other fleet captains and then use their sheet music to perform an a cappella concert so great that it summons the Merworm, and then you kill it, and then he resurrects it and then wreaks havoc on all the land dwellers. It's such a long-winded plan that it could have only been cooked up by the truly insane and James Bond villains.
I mean,
with
he
the
is
Merworm
insane.
Getting this sweet-ass model, I'm with him 110%. It's just too bad you only see it in the final cutscene of the game and never actually get to use the damn thing.
Oh, god damn it, no! Do they change that in Warhammer 3? It would be so cool if you, like, get to end game. It's a pretty expensive unit, but, like, at that point, like, you know that you're gonna win, so you just go around conquering the world with a freaking gigantic lizard. But I don't think that is what's gonna happen. And did I say lizard? I mean, it kind of looks like when it's got the scales. It's like the not Kraken. But yeah, I don't know. Missed opportunity if they don't do that. That would be so cool.
So instead, you'll have to console yourself with ludicrous amounts of gunpowder to play with, as well as an urchin-covered version of the Paris gun called Big Bess. All of which Harkon buffs with his trait More Powder, which gives you enough ammunition to finally fund a sequel to the 1980s masterpiece Commando. And if you rush the research to improve guns and recruit a gunnery wight to show your troops which end is the shooty bit, you're left with an army that plays like a twisted version of Napoleon Total War, where the entire battlefield is one giant gray fog that wants to melt your graphics card. Combining gunner deckhands with carronade cannons and the Big Bess mortar to bring this medieval fantasy shuffling and moaning into the Industrial Revolution. And if you're feeling particularly advanced, you can always try the Chevron formation, where you get twice as much firepower on your target and lets Luthor Harkon shoot his overcharged loads into the unguarded flanks of his enemies. Just remember to keep some expendable zombies on the front line to soak up damage. And I do mean expendable. I mean, think of them like politicians and expect to recruit a new one every turn if you actually want to get anything done.
I think that's the general strat for all undead armies, right? You got your troops that are just meant to die for the sake of absorbing ammunition and whatnot. And then you got your actual, like, powerhouses, like that giant-ass cannon, which does a ton of damage. And apparently you can also refill the ammunition. Maybe there's, like, some sort of spell or some sort of unit that does that for you, but yeah. We did see it in, I think it was Kleeper's video. Ah, that's right. It was the one-man army video.
The only thing holding Luthor Harkon back from sheer awesomeness are his useless starting units. Deck droppers are flying ranged units, but their low number count and low stats mean you can only really snipe enemy artillery, and that's about it. Just don't fly them too close to actual ranged units. They seem to be allergic to bullets. Mornghuls are flanking attack units, which is fine, but what Harkon really needs is a copious amount of zombies to stop the enemy from reaching his gunners. If you treat them like absurdly slow cavalry, Mornghuls almost work, but plan to replace them as soon as you get depth guards, and even then they're about as useful as an 80s Alfa Romeo. Sure, they look nice, but saying vroom and pushing the pedal harder doesn't actually make them go any faster. Your other starter is this absolute unit who looks like your average Walmart patron, a pus and awful-filled, bloated corpse who is...
That's interesting. I mean, I like the attention to detail that they don't have the exact same model, I'm sure that there's like a bunch of different variations and then it's just randomly generated. But like what I mean is the fact that they just have like different injuries and stuff.
So full of putrid gas, he's ready to blow the moment you feed him a wafer-thin mint. His gimmick is that he rhymes with Buicide Somber, and I gotta be really careful when talking about him, because I'm pretty sure even including him means my video is one Aloha Akbar away from being banned on YouTube. And it also means that you really only get one chance to run Tubby here towards the enemy's most valuable clump and watch as he does the Swan Lake special.
He does a belly flop onto them? Oh my god. That's so horrifically beautiful. It sucks that we're doing this to the Lizardman, but it's thematic, I guess, for Luthor. Dude. This could be game-changing, depending on how you use this. Most valuable clump. Gone.
I found myself carrying around a second supporting army filled with just these guys just to watch the carnage they caused. And since they count towards the vampire's raise dead mechanic, there's always a handy supply sitting in the wings, eating Cheetos and drinking melted milkshakes. To pay for all this explosive excess, you can turn to a typical life of piracy, raiding any nearby settlements. Or you can become a true pirate and put on a three-piece suit and try venture capitalism, founding pirate coves all around the map. These hidden sea settlements latch onto parent settlements and then drain the life and money from them. You see, you create the pirate coves, and then you forget about them, sailing on your merry way and collecting additional income every turn with zero maintenance, because pirates aren't exactly renowned for their managerial abilities, which CA seems to have taken into account, as a life constantly running one step ahead of John Law has led to the Vampire Coast Pirates actually being designed as a semi-horde faction, where you can build and recruit from your floating fortress. So if you don't want to, you never even have to hold a settlement, which makes Harkon's campaign even weirder, as you're stuck on the dry land like some dirt-loving landlubber. So if you're looking to play a pirate and sail the high seas against everything that touches the soggy damp, look elsewhere. But if you want a glimpse of how Empire Total War II will play, Harkon is your vampire. And there you have...
That's interesting, because like the actual pirate doesn't have like a floating fortress, but I think one of the, the Dark Elf leaders does? It's the guy with a tentacle squid-like mask thing. I remember seeing him, and I know that he starts off with a black fortress. I think that's what they were called, because the Dark Elves have that. And that seems more like a pirate than, well, the zombie pirates do, strangely enough. I'm sure Cody has done a video on that guy if, well, he was even worth doing a video on, so... yeah, maybe I'll learn more about that later.
Have your most requested noobs guide for reasons I will never be able to fathom. Because becoming this dirty sea dog sailing port to port spreading VDs between bouts of scurvy has never appealed to me. But undoubtedly you believe you're the one who would be Pirate King
yeah,
and
it's
not
not my kind of gameplay either.
The deck. And somehow I've managed to make this entire video without making a single bad Cornish accent pirate joke. So I hope you
Thank
are
goodness.
happy.
He just had to do it to us, didn't he? But this song is epic, I love it. We need it in battle.